And in doing so in my work, I've really just come across the opportunity to give more of myself. So this platform, for those of you that are new to this platform, was created as a place, a safe place to actually just talk about taboo topics that we are discussing amongst ourselves, amongst our friends, amongst our peers, colleagues, at happy hour, at the dinner table, just to give us opportunity to really to dive into some information and make sure that we are, processing those things appropriately. So today, as you guys come in, I want to make sure that you are dropping the city that you're from. Also, make sure that you include any handlers that you want us to shout out and any community service projects that you want us to shout out as well. Today is going to be an awesome show. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks now. So I'm excited to share. And I'm excited to have our guest to share her insight as well. I already know it's going to be good, so you will not be disappointed. Okay. So it is right at 4 o'clock. And we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot of things to unpack today. So, for me at this point in my life and during the process of the pandemic, I feel that we at this time more than ever need an outlet. And on top of needing an outlet, we need a sense of encouragement amongst our community, amongst ourselves, amongst our peer group, and just in our daily walk. And in doing so, in all honesty, my position and my mission with Tiff Talks has never changed and never wavered. As I mentioned in the beginning, this platform was created in order to just bring education, bring insight, and bring awareness to topics that and taboos that we're already talking about, just in an open form so that we can process those things appropriately. And during this time, my team and I really wanted to bring to the forefront um, some encouragement and really bring to the forefront kind of the hindsight of what we're all dealing with personally. So we decided to really tackle bringing in some good. And by bringing in that good, we decided that we wanted to do an empowerment series. Now, in this empowerment series, if you were a part of the Breaking Generational Curse, then you're kind of familiar with our series and the content that we present. I cannot promise you that tears are not going to be shed, excuse me, but there will be some tears of joy. And that is so that we are doing this together and we're processing this together. Today is our opener for the series. And today we're going to be discussing a topic that is very near and dear to my heart and one that I love to discuss, and that is purpose. We have a very, very insightful guest on this topic. And before we kind of get too deep into discussing purpose, I want to give her the opportunity to introduce herself. So I want you guys to welcome with me, excuse me, I'm messing up your name already, Miesha Burks. She is the owner and operator of Dealing H.O.P.E, and an agency that is here in the Houston area that is true to their name. And I'll give her the stage now to go ahead and introduce herself.
Hey everybody, it's Miesha and it's hashtag Dealing H.O.P.E. So as Tiffany already presented, I am the owner and founder of that particular mentor program. I am a native Houstonian. I'm a mother of two. I love to read. I love quotes. And I'm excited for today's dialogue.
All righty. Thank you for that introduction. So during the month of June alone, there was a 40% increase amongst Americans as it relates to mental health. And for me, that is no surprise because when we talk about vulnerable populations and mental health, we automatically can identify with us minorities, people of color. We can also identify with young adults and caregivers. And those three entities are something that I share a position in across the board, and many of our audience do as well.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly enough, this season, the month of June through July, is something that we look forward to. I know something I look forward to be able to have the summer to recharge, to refresh, to kind of relax and kind of take a different approach to the daily hustle and bustle in life. Now, when it comes to mental health during this time, I consider it to be a double-edged sword. And that's because, not only are we dealing with the pandemic, not only are we dealing with this economic crisis, not only are we dealing with the injustice that we're seeing time after time in the media, we are at a point where we really don't have the place or the position to be able to move away from it. So it's something that we
Absolutely.
have to sit with, something we have to deal with, and something that we have to process. So, in doing that, as I mentioned, we wanted to bring to you guys an empowerment series to be able to discuss those concerns, and also just give some insight and share our experience and process together throughout this time. Honestly, when I think about purpose and walking in purpose, when we talk about purpose among our peer group, it's like a foreign language to people. People
Mhm.
really don't necessarily understand what purpose is. They don't necessarily understand how to walk in it, let alone how to define it. Now, for me, Miesha and I, we actually met virtually some time ago. And one thing that really kind of drew me to you, Miesha, was how you promoted one of the events that you were hosting. And that was the Kidpreneur event that you were hosting. And I saw just through your purpose, just through your post, excuse me, how you'd really promoted and really kind of put on the forefront your heart and the purpose for these events and the heart that you have for your purpose. So when my team and I began to kind of discuss who would be a guest for this topic, it was no kind of regard that you would be a really good guest and want to bring insight. So to start off, I want to be sure that we kind of set the tone by being able to share what you feel your experience has been in defining purpose.
Absolutely. So that was one particular event in which we crossed paths, but I do remember speaking with you regarding my conversation with Teens event. And now as I reflect, I'm going to say you probably were vetting me back then, LOL. But in all seriousness, my answer remains the same as I shared with you back then through our messages by way of DM, and that's life. Life itself is some teacher, and once you actually begin to pay attention to all of the scenarios that you go through, the experiences, most of the answers that we're seeking regarding our purpose, they've already been displayed.
And I would agree with that. When we go through life, our own purpose plays out in our daily life and things that
Hmm.
we are attracted to, things that we're drawn to. Um,
Right.
and I feel that it's a different experience for everyone.
Yes.
Whether it be the timeline, whether it be the search, whether it be just the various entities that goes into identifying your purpose. When it
Mhm.
comes to identifying your purpose, it's also important to be able to define your purpose and understanding how to differentiate the two,
Mhm.
defining versus identifying. And
Mhm.
it's important to me that we also really kind of bring into perspective what it truly means to define your purpose.
Well, for me, I'm going to have to say intentional value. And as you
Mm,
were sharing, basically as it relates to its genre, love, education, religion, politics,
mm,
it depends on the intent of that purpose and what it's for.
right, right, right. Now, I remember maybe a couple of years ago for me, when I got to the point where I wanted to really dive into defining and identifying my purpose. I remember like going through the motions in my
Mhm.
own career. And one thing that I've always kind of done on my daily way to work is I take the time to be in silence. And when I'm not in silence and preparing for work, I oftentimes do praise and worship by myself. And in
Mhm.
doing that, during this time, I really kind of was drawn to a lot of TD Jakes series. And I remember a particular sermon that he preached, and he talked about when it comes to purpose, you have to be positioned for
Yeah.
purpose.
Mhm.
And on top of being positioned for purpose, you also have to be positioned for productivity.
Mhm.
And for me, it really kind of hit home because, as I mentioned, um, I kind of was born into this bubble type of life, things that were expected of me, things that I kind of just had to, roles in life I had to just kind of go into because that was what the intention was for my parents. So I did kind of the carbon copy of going to school and graduating and going into my career. And in my career, I had started to make a lot of strides. I'd started to get to the point where I'd been like crushing career goals and things like that. But I couldn't say that I was truly happy at that
Right.
point. And I really kind of struggled with happiness versus being content. And with that, I really kind of had to do a lot of soul searching, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things that put me in a position to say, you know, do I want to continue on this path of this bubble of a life that I've created for myself? Or is it time for me to step out and do something more where I can truly be happy and live in my purpose?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I really got to a point where I had to find if this was the position and the place that I wanted to be in. How
Mm-hmm.
do you feel purpose coincides with posture and position? Excuse me.
Well, they're all interchangeable if you ask me. When it comes to position, you have to keep in mind the attitude of, that you're reflecting when you're in position, regardless if, it's a professional position, the role or the position of being a parent, whatever way you're in position to be of some assistance or support or a resource to the next person who, for sure, without a doubt, has eyes on you, and even those who you don't know that are watching you.
Mm.
I feel like posture, same thing. It's nonverbal
Mm.
reflection of, you know, what it is you're wanting to convey by way of communication in that facet. Um, I don't know. I feel like purpose, posture, position, they all, like, you can't have one without the other. They all are intermingled.
Right, right. I would definitely agree. When it comes down to those three things, they all really kind of coincide for me. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
they're interchangeable. You cannot have one without the other.
Right.
What I do feel is when it comes down to position, um, it's not just always about being in the same room with that person, or
Mm-hmm.
being in the room with the right people. For me, it's more so about the people that you're in the room with, because a lot of times we don't really take into account, do the people that we're in the room with have the same mind, have the same heart for the
Mm-hmm.
things
Mm-hmm.
that we have. Now, I want to be clear, everybody is individuals. You won't have the same passion that I have for something, not necessarily, because you have a different experience, nor will you always have the same grind or, the same intent for things as I would have. But do we at least have something in common? So
Right.
that's what I think about when I think about position. And then when I think about posture, I think about, are you at a point where you've made room for your purpose? I
That's
know,
a good
for
question.
instance, for when you get ready to move into a new house, then you have to prepare yourself for that.
Yes.
So you prepare yourself by getting your credit together. You prepare yourself by getting your money together, by getting your finances together. When I purchased my home, it was a 4-year process for me. I went and I sat down with the realtor before I'd actually started the process of like getting my credit and everything together, because I wanted to know what I was getting myself into, and I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to prepare myself. So when it comes down for posture, for me, it's like, are you making room in your life for those things? If you're ready to take your career to the next level, are you making room in your life for those things? Because if you aren't, then are you really ready to move forward with walking in your purpose? And then if you're not, are you willing to give up that purpose for just to be a part of whatever is going on around you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with all of what you said. And then the other part too, just to piggyback off of what you stated, when you do consider the position role, you have to consider every walk of life. It's not just a targeted audience. It's not a one man's audience. It's, if I'm a millionaire, you know, and I'm trying to help the next person to elevate to be in the same on the same caliber or in the same realm, then I have to meet them where they are. So in my role, my purpose, and I know that I can't get away from it, has always involved children in my personal life, you know, step kids, in my career path, children. And so it's the same thing when you are trying to approach a child, because you've been on the earth longer than they have.
Right.
And not to say that, you know, you're necessarily going to know everything, because it's a many days. My kids in the now teach me things that I had no earthly idea of. And I'm like, wait a minute, you know, but you have to meet everybody individually where they are. You can't impose or infringe on one's thoughts and the way that they process and the way that they move, because we are individuals.
Right. I agree with that. And on top of agreeing with that, one thing that I've learned when it comes down to position and posture, and this is something that I've had firsthand experience and struggles with, is understanding when it comes to positioning and posturing yourself, you cannot take everybody with you.
Absolutely. But a lot of people look at it from a negative standpoint. It doesn't have to be the fact that, oh, you know, they hate me, they don't want to be where, you know, they can't touch me. It does not always birth from that. It's just a simple reality check for the person that's elevating or moving beyond, or, you know what I'm saying, or just whatever it is. It's true to its statement. Everybody can't go. Because everybody, again, is not on that same path with you, you know, and whatever type of relationship that you have, you know, you plateau at points, and it's absolutely okay, because whatever your purpose was in their life has been fulfilled. Hopefully.
Right. I completely agree. Now, before I transition to our subtopic, I do see a couple more people that have come in, so I'm going to go ahead and do some shout outs really quickly. I see that Delana Kelly has come in. Hey, Kelly, nice to see you. I see Ken, Talk Partner, has come in as well. And I see Nisha. Hey, Nisha, thank you for joining us.
Is that Karen, Nisha?
Yes.
Hey, girl.
Thank you for joining us and being a part of this. When it comes down, I see some more people. I see Heaven has also joined us as well. Hey, Heaven, thank you for joining us. Now, when it comes down to purpose, I find that one thing that we negate or don't pay as much attention to is the responsibility that comes along with purpose. And if I'm being very, very transparent, this is something that I've learned through this particular podcast, is being able to take responsibility for my own purpose and the power of that purpose. And I see that in how we've had to restructure some things in our podcast, and how we present, how we vet our guests, and how we communicate. Even our production team, after we did our Breaking Generational Curse series, I got so many people that jumped in my DM. And at that point, I was like, oh, people are really kind of tuning in. They taking what we're presenting and applying it to their life, and they're giving us their experiences and their success with these things. I need to make sure that I'm presenting the best parts of me, and that my team is presenting the best parts of them, and we're consistent in doing that. So I really had a new level of ownership for Tiff Talks. And I think when it comes down to responsibility, we don't necessarily always take into account the impact. Now, recently, probably a week or a couple of weeks ago, you posted on your page about impact. And it really, 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 really stood out to me. And I really want you to share your perception as it relates to impact, but also the impression as it relates to impact and purpose as well.
Of course. So I do believe that impact requires substance. It has to be intentional. When you think about impact in relation to impression, some people can impress off of a whim, but are not cognitively aware of the actions that they projected. So it's kind of that scenario where, you know, you could be in casual conversation, or it could be a problematic situation where you guys we're trying to find a resolution, and there's a light bulb for some person, but this is not a consistency. It's just an in the moment ordeal. So in that instance, it's not intentional. It wasn't to be purposeful, but when or impactful, excuse me. But when you're to impact somebody, impact is the aim at changing something, creating a difference. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So when you think about purpose in relation to impact, to me, they're almost one and the same, because it requires being intentional.
Now, when you share that, I immediately think about our king from Wakanda, Chadwick, and
Right.
my heart still breaks. I had to explain it to my kid, my son, who is a Black Panther fan from across the board. I had to explain it to him, and when my husband and I sat down and we really kind of just started processing and talking about his passing, my husband brought something to my attention, that he'd been diagnosed with this stage 3 cancer in 2016. But from that 4-year period of 2016 to 2020, the impact that he had on so many people and so many entities and settings of life, all while he was battling his own, struggles, not just what he was doing on the movie screen, but what he was doing in his own personal time, from being
Right.
able to go and visit with these children that are also battling cancer. And even the speech that he did at his alma mater at Howard, just the people that sat in the audience, like you can see on the video, I seen it on Facebook, I think. Someone had posted the replay of the video of the speech that he'd given. And you can see the people in the audience streaming in tears, and him talking about purpose and sharing with people his own purpose and what he was living up to in his own lifetime, and being able to make an impact with aligning his purpose. And that's something that I feel that we don't always take into account. We don't take into that responsibility. You have those people that that are watching, but I feel we need to take more ownership of those that we don't know who are watching, because
Right.
there's
Right. Right.
always someone watching, and you never want to be in a position or a place where you're not um presenting yourself in a place where it's not purposeful or not intentional.
Exactly. I definitely agree with that statement. And when I think about him, he's one of those celebrities that I felt like in real life, his character was who he was on screen. And so in those instances, people who reflect their true life character in their position are people who I feel like I connect to, even though I have absolutely no idea, no knowledge of who
Yeah.
they are, where they come from, but just my following them in their career
Right.
path, very much impactful. And yes, you absolutely have to be cautious of whatever it is you exude by way of conversation, you know, because the fact of the matter is that even though you can stress all day, even within your series, and you share with people, the intention behind it is solely just to help, be of some kind of help, to let we're all experiencing the same scenarios, we're all going through life's problems. The accountability part behind that is that you've taken up this platform to share this information. So should it go awry for anybody, that's kind of a piece of you that's involved in that. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's nothing saying, well, you have to do XYZ the way I say it, how I say it, how I did it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Right. And I always share that, not only in my line of work, but also on this platform, that this information that we present is never to hinder, but always to, intentionally help people and intentionally allow people to apply the things and apply those same insights and awareness and experiences to their own life to enrich their lives.
Right.
One thing that also comes along with impact, and something that I've learned recently, is about restraint. When it comes to purpose, you have to learn to practice restraint. And you have to be able to set those boundaries and those barriers when it comes to walking in your purpose. What is your take on restraint as it relates to purpose, posture, and position?
With your insight or your answer to that question, I'm going to say My first thought didn't go that route, but I definitely do see that particular angle from this question. For me, it went to restraint keeps you limited. And when you're operating in purpose, you have to choose to come around those limitations, because restraint simply is a hindrance, whether it's self-given or if it's something that's out of our control. But again, when you're on the path of pursuing purpose and are in position to do such, you have to make the deciding factor of if you're going to choose to be restrained from doing it or not.
When I look at restraint, I look at it from that standpoint, but also the standpoint of when you are walking in purpose and when you're defining your purpose, there will be challenges along the way.
Of course.
And those tests and challenges along the way are meant to shape you and also be able to put you in practice of those things that you need to not be distracted by.
Right.
My husband and I have like this running joke, because I'm a very vocal person. In my personal life and my career life, I've always been very vocal. And in being very vocal, sometimes it's hard for me to hold my tongue. Sometimes it's hard for me to not send that email. It's so hard for me not to send an email sometimes. So my husband, I had been having like an issue with a colleague. And my husband was like, Tiffany, you haven't noticed that you failed this same test with this same colleague every time. And I had to take a look at myself and had to think about it. Yeah, probably for maybe a year, 2 years, I had been bumping my head up against the wall with a particular colleague. And it was because I hadn't practiced restraint. I was responsive to every little thing instead of being able to hold my own regard and understanding not everything requires my attention. And when I got to a point where I didn't allow those things to distract me, when I literally got to a point of peace, and practice restraint, I began to blossom in my own. Like the world can be crashing around this particular person and I will keep walking. And it's not in regard for any harm, but for my own peace, to be able to practice restraint and not be responsive to everything, because being responsive to everything is only going to put you in a position where you are getting off a course of your own purpose and taking you out of position. So for me, restraint, has gone both ways, being able to make sure that I'm putting it into practice, but also being able to make sure that I'm vulnerable enough to be able to feel and be able to share as well. Now, I personally feel like this particular platform of Tiff Talks has become my own personal superpower. And I think that when it comes to speaking about superpowers, we really have to learn to discover that superpower as it relates to our own purpose. What are your thoughts about discovering your superpower as it relates to your purpose?
Well, I absolutely love the term superpower because I feel empowered just with that term. But I do believe superpowers are within all people, not a certain type, certain culture, ethnicity, none of that. Everybody. And some powers are dormant, and then there are some powers that are highly visible. I think that the purpose of superpowers are discovered through exercise the challenges of who you are, where you are in life, meeting your needs. And I think that superpowers will surface and are identified through purpose and intent. So for me, using myself as an example, I discovered my superpowers and purpose through traditional old school format, trial and error, love and pain, but with the strongest and highest level of perseverance.
I love that. I love that. Because if one thing that we know is trial and error. One thing that we know is if the stove is hot, don't touch it the next time. So being able to discover your superpower just in a very authentic and kind of, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? authentic, but also kind of just a natural standpoint, is
Mhm.
I think that's how you have a greater value for your own superpower.
Mhm.
One thing that I've also learned is being able to allow my power and my purpose to fuel my work, and ultimately to fuel, my worth. One thing that comes up in probably every single topic that we discuss at Tiff Talks is the word worth, and being
Mhm.
able to understand your worth and value your worth, and being able to make sure that you are putting your worth at a point where you're protective of it, but you're also showcasing it to the point where you're also making an impact as it relates to worth.
Mhm.
I think when it comes to, your worth, you also are discovering your worth. You also develop a new level of respect. And I'm
Absolutely.
interested to kind of get your take on how you feel respectability actually plays into purpose.
This is a good question. But I feel like when it comes to respectability, it is definitely a must, a requirement that you gotta. It goes back to your idea of worth. You gotta self-respect first and foremost beyond anything.
Hmm.
Because the reality is that no matter how much expertise you have, how much knowledge, how much you're knowledgeable about whatever,
Hmm.
it's not a guarantee that as you release that information or whatever it is, you're going to get that respect from the person or the audience or whomever. You know, you can have 1,000 people in the building and you may only hit two of them.
Yeah.
And it may be because they truly are wanting to grasp and retain whatever it is you're sharing, the reason behind why they attended or came. But then you may have some who just, signed up or just attended something or just took part and participated just because, really don't care. And then you have the spectators, the
Hmm.
skepticism, all
Yeah.
of those things. But also, it's very much important to make sure that respect is also given, not not just received.
Definitely. Definitely. I completely agree with that. When it comes down to respect, you have to make sure that is given and that is received across all boards with each and every person that you interact with, from
Hmm.
the smallest to the youngest. Because at that point, I feel that when you are more receptive to giving respect, you it's easier to be able to receive it. If I
Right, right,
show
right.
respect for you, it's easier for you to show respect for me as well.
Hmm.
Okay. Let me give a couple of shout outs as people have come in. I see Gloria has come in. Hey, Gloria, nice to see you. I see that Clark Steve has come in as well. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who I see that you're watching, but you haven't said anything, remember here on Facebook, unfortunately, until you like post in the comments, I can't see you. So I only just see that you're watching. I don't see your name and I can't shout you out. So feel free to make sure that you are complete, that you're putting your name, the city that you're from, any handlers that you want us to mention, as well as any community service projects that you want us to mention as well. We'll be happy to shout those things out throughout this particular production. Now, one particular topic that um, goes kind of back and forth with me and some of my peer group is the idea of boss versus leader.
Hmm.
And at this point, in, I guess you could say, our generation, everybody wants to be a boss.
Yes,
Everybody
God.
wants to be the boss.
Yes.
And that term boss has both negative and positive things to go along with it.
Absolutely.
But I seen a video not too long ago that stood out to me when it said boss versus leader. And in this particular video, and I'll post it probably later on this evening, there was a pride of lions all together.
Hmm.
And there was this one particular lion that, of course, you can tell just by the demeanor that this was the boss.
Hmm.
And what it appeared to be was that this pride was seeking out food, and the boss went over, located food, and fed himself, while the rest of the pride stayed back and just was onlookers, spectators.
Hmm.
Versus another person another lion that was a part of the pride went over and they considered themselves to be a leader. So they created another hole where it was water coming out the ground, and they invited the rest of the lions to come over and drink with them. And for me, I'm at a position in my career where I've checked all the boxes. I'm in line to move forward into leadership.
Mhm.
And I was like, do I want to be a boss or do I want to be a leader? Because those are two
Mhm.
very different things.
They
And
are.
after seeing that video, my idea was I want to be a leader. I don't have to have the title in order to be a leader. And for
Right.
me, with being a leader, I feel that I have more of an impact versus being a boss. So I'm interested to know your take as it relates to aligning with purpose, boss versus leader.
For me, it's the leader. A boss, as you've already clearly explained, isn't necessarily a leader. You have many people in positions of being a boss, but do not have the skills or the tools that are required to lead. So
Mm,
when you compare the two, a leader for me is almost an innate. I'm going to say it's an innate ability. It comes natural.
mm,
Being the boss requires training to be in position to assist those in which you have to manage. I
mm.
mean, yeah, both of them will require an ongoing seeking of constant information, and knowledge. But when it comes to the boss, it's only for that particular job. Whereas being a leader, it's whatever, happens, regardless of the job, the movement, the situation. It's very much different. And for me, it's the leader.
Yeah. I agree. When it comes down to being a leader, that can transcend to any walk of life, within your
Mm-hmm.
home, within your career, within your community, within your church, within your peer group, being able to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's easier to take the lead than to take on the role as a boss. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes down to that term boss, a lot of people, and I guess I can say from recent experience, a lot of people can take that very negatively,
Mm-hmm.
as more of a superior, versus
Mm-hmm.
when it comes down to being a leader, then that means that you don't have a problem with being a part of the pack, but also making a way for the pack. And for me,
Right.
I've come to a point where kind of going back and forth of, do I want to be in a leadership role or in a supervisory role, is, do I want to be the boss, or I'm okay with just being a leader?
Right. I feel like a lot of the negativity, though, stems from those who are not maybe quite confident in themselves, and then those who have issues with authority. It's in my experience, and I'm gonna go way back to McDonald's. When we were in high school, I became a lead. And
Mm,
so even though I wasn't considered the boss or the manager, I still had to oversee a few of my peers
mhm, mhm.
within that realm. And so I'm younger than the majority of the people at the time that were there. And it's like, oh, who's gonna listen to her?
Yeah.
She's younger than I am. But the thing is, age doesn't equal development,
Mhm,
you know? And so I feel like that's an issue when boss is viewed.
mhm,
And then the other instance of it being a trend, as you
mhm.
said, I'm a boss, you a boss, but what is it, what is the intent of you being a boss? What are you
Right.
trying to project? Are you trying to walk in the light of a boss and it's only a facade, it's just for show
Mm,
because you want to be you need validation, or is it
mm.
to its true definition that this is really who you are?
Yeah.
But in that same instance, you don't have to flaunt who you are. Your
Yeah.
character will speak who you are
Yeah.
without you having to utter a word. And so for
Exactly.
me, being transparent, I used to do this and I fell off. And I think because of this segment, I'm going to actually pick it back up. I used to ask those who were around me that know me, and then those who probably just entered my world in whatever way I allow them
Mhm.
to give me 3 words that they would describe me as so that I can
Mm,
self-check myself.
mm.
And I've had both. I've had leader and I've had, those who tell me you bossy. And I'm like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
And then even with my children. So my daughter, she'll be 15 this year. My son just
Mm.
turned 8. being in the career choice of working with children. So I'm an early childhood mentor. I taught for
Okay.
7 years prior to transitioning into the current role.
Mhm.
Even that helps me analyze the way that I project myself because, I allow and I share with my kids, you can speak, share with me what thought process you have, just be
Right.
respectful. But I need to know how I'm releasing myself on them. And, my daughter, she told me, you're irritating, you're aggravating, all those things. And I told her, keep going, I can take it, but my heart was dying on the inside. But I needed to know those things so that I could correct, what it was I was transferring, whether it was
Yeah.
nonverbal or even with the choice of words. Because when I'm in a momentum, the vernacular is there, it's
Yeah.
gone, and so I have to digress a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely the leader role. It's cool to be a boss. There's nothing wrong with being a boss, but if you're purely and genuinely true to what being a boss is, but the leader, I feel, outranks the boss at any on any day.
That's good. That's good. I love that. And I love that interaction or that activity that you do with your peers and with your kids. Because I think it's important that we take into account other people's perception of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because you want to make sure that your presentation, like you said earlier, that your impact is purposeful, that it's
Mm-hmm.
intentional, and that is really driving home something that's authentic and that's pure of you as well. I like that. I see a few people that have come in. I see J. Marie Goodjoin. Hey, girl, welcome. And I see Tamisa Miller. I hope I pronounced your name right. If I didn't, let me apologize. I'm not good at those things. But I do want to shout you out. Thank you for joining. You're tuning in from Houston, Texas. Thank you for joining. Um, throughout this series or um, throughout this particular live, we have been talking purpose, posture, and position. And you've shared some great insight on how to truly how to truly identify your purpose, but also how and what it means to define purpose as well. But being able to take responsibility and also being able to make sure that your impact is purposeful. At the conclusion of every show, I always ask that our guests share with us their testament for this particular topic. So, what is the one thing that you want to make sure that our audience take away from today?
I'm going to use your very title for the series, and more so for myself because, with Dealing Hope, hashtag Dealing Hope, everybody, it is very much a role that requires accountability because of the fact that, as we've already discussed, you don't know who's watching, you don't know how they're receiving any whatever it is you're sharing.
Mhm.
But I'm going to say always be mindful of your posture as you're in position to fulfill your purpose.
That's good. I love that. I love that. My testament for this particular episode is to be very mindful, as you mentioned, of understanding that purpose truly has a timeline. And I say that it has a timeline because our life has a timeline. And you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to have gone through life without truly living in your purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
by living in your purpose, I mean being truly fulfilled and fulfilling what God has in store for you and having to propose that impact and propose and change lives in whatever position that you've been in. Um, in recent times, in the last couple of months, we can see that a lot of people used to say, the old die, the young may die. We've seen so many young people of our generation to pass on, and it wasn't in what we would ideally see as their timeline or their expiration, but all of the impact that we've seen from Breonna Taylor, all of the impact that we've seen from George Floyd, all of the impact that we've seen from Chadwick. I mean, these are people that have lived a short time span that have had such a great impact. So
Mm-hmm.
as you watch this, as you share with your friends, as you watch the playback, I encourage you to make sure that on a daily basis that you're living on purpose, because you never know when it's going to be your end of the timeline. And that in doing so, that you're positioning yourself and making note of your posture so that you can make sure that you are being fulfilled and that you're fulfilling your purpose for your life. Okay. Today was good. I
I
enjoyed
hope so.
I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed this conversation, and I knew it would. But I always love to be able to truly connect with our talk guests. So as we conclude, go ahead and drop your handlers, drop any community service projects or projects that you have going on, or anything that we can look forward to come from you and Dealing Hope. Miesha,
Yes, I'm sorry.
go ahead and drop your handlers.
Oh, I thought you were speaking to the people. My
No, I'm
apologies.
speaking to you. Go
I'm
ahead
so
and drop
sorry.
your handlers.
Okay, so the only handler I have is going to be for Instagram, and it is at dealing, DEALING underscore hope with periods in between. So H period, O period, P period, E. And so when you see it, if you ever hashtag, it's just simply hashtag dealing hope.
Okay. And any community service projects that you have going on that you want us to shout out?
I don't have any right now. I kind of been out of the loop on things. Had a little mini vacay, and then I just purchased my home for me and my two babies. So that
Congratulations.
has very much been an experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know, and then very much appreciative of this segment because it has allowed me to focus back on, some things that not necessarily I'm lacking on, but just pushed to the side. But, as you said earlier, when you have built such a platform, it's almost as if the goodness you're trying to put out there, people are awaiting that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I've been telling myself, like, got to get it together. So I'm going to get it together.
Well, one thing I want you guys to make note of Dealing Hope is every Monday she has a video that she posts, and it's a motivational video. When you follow her on Instagram, please make note of the videos that she posts. She drops some gems every Monday, so make sure that you're looking out for her motivational Mondays. Make sure that you're following her on her platform on Instagram, and make sure that you're also following us on Instagram and on Facebook, and also following our YouTube channel. The information should be right here. And in following us, make sure that you like and share the pages as well. This particular footage will remain on Facebook, and then will also be streamed to YouTube this evening. Some announcements on our end. This is a 7-part series. Today we kicked off with discussing purpose, position, and posture. On September the 13th, which is 2 Sundays from now, we will be talking about alignment. And what it means to be aligned, and how you get in alignment. And that is going to be a good discussion as well. Throughout the series, we'll be talking, like I said, some heavy hitter topics. We're going to be talking about vulnerability. We're going to be talking about the beauty, the collateral beauty, excuse me. We're also going to be talking about from the man's perspective and women's perspective as it relates to our own experiences. So this is going to be a 7-part series. We have 6 more episodes to go, and I encourage you guys to stick around for the ride, because it's going to be good and it's going to be impactful. So make sure that you set your notifications. We are here bi-weekly Sundays at 4 p.m. And I normally will begin promoting and giving you more insight and introducing you to those guests throughout the week as well. So make sure that you follow me, and make sure that you turn on your notifications so that you'll have them. I want to thank all of you guys for joining us. The last few shout outs that I have is, I want to shout out Custom Engagements. That is by Nisha Terrell. She does awesome work with apparel, but also with she does, her baby just started doing custom treats like strawberries and things of that sort. So she is a custom apparel company. I also see that Floyd Johnson has joined us as well. Thank you for joining. Make sure that you guys take the opportunity to like, share, and repost this actual footage on your Facebook pages. And we look forward to seeing you guys on September the 13th. Thank you for joining us. All right. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you so
Bye.
much,
Thank you.
Miesha.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. And everybody, make sure that you keep talking purpose.